My name is Nicole Laliberte, and I am an associate professor teaching stream in the Department of Geography, Geomatics, and the Environment.
And I'm Fiona Rawle. I am the Associate Dean Undergraduate at UTM and also an Associate Professor teaching stream in the Department of Biology. Evidence-based practices for studying. There is a huge body of research into what makes studying effective. And we've gone through that research and we've pulled out several examples for you that we're going to explore in a moment. But first, I wanted to highlight two things that don't work. And these are myths that just won't die. The first is multitasking. We cannot multitask well. And we know that if students multitask in lecture or multitask during studying, that they are less likely to remember that information and less likely to understand it. The second myth is learning styles. Learning styles do not exist, yet this myth keeps getting perpetuated. We all learn better by doing and being active in our learning. We might have a learning preference, we might enjoy something, but that doesn't mean we actually learn better that way. There is absolutely no evidence for the existence of learning styles, and they are dangerous because they promote a fixed mindset, and we really want to foster a growth mindset. So there are three different categories that we're going to focus on today. When you look at all the research on what makes studying effective and tips for academic success, they fall into three different categories: academic skills, non-academic skills, and motivation and mindset.
Knowing what you don't know. So it's really hard to bring in and process new information if you don't even realize you're lacking that information in the beginning.
Study skills is an academic skill, as is note-taking. With note-taking, it's really important to apply interpretation. Critical thinking skills are really important, and they can be difficult to develop, and it can be uncomfortable to work on them. Critical thinking means applying what you know, critiquing information, questioning sources, evaluating information. The first is time management. And when people think of time management, they usually first think of a schedule, but it's so much more than scheduling. Time management is about prioritizing and planning, and then reflecting on what you're doing to see what works and what doesn't, and how can you shift your priorities or shift your schedule. Goal setting is also a big part of time management. What are your goals and how will you reach them? Can you break them up into smaller chunks? That's often called scaffolding. So if you have a big assignment or a big essay, break that essay up into smaller chunks, set yourself goals, and then put your goals into your schedule and prioritize them. Also, the skill of reflection is very important. With this skill, you are taking an honest look at how you're performing and how you're learning, and you're giving yourself feedback on what you can change and what you can do better. It's important to be reflective at every single aspect of your learning journey at UTM.
The thing that we wanted to highlight today is that there's been a link found between procrastination and perfectionism, right? So everybody procrastinates to some degree. But the trick here is that if you are procrastinating, try to figure out why. Where is the resistance coming from? Is it because you don't want to start the project yet because you're not sure what the final outcome is going to look like? Is it because you don't know where to start? So maybe it'd be good to go ask a peer or to ask your teacher for a little bit of support. So that idea of really looking for in your own process, what is the resistance that's keeping me from getting started? The next thing in this non-academic skill world is something that all of us are good to remember, which has to do with prioritizing our wellness and our sleep. There are so many studies that show that we can't learn when we are tired. We need to have proper sleep for learning, and that goes back to both quality and quantity of sleep. So one of the tricks that's come out about this lately is making sure that we're not having our phones right in front of our face as we're going to bed, because it does make it more difficult to fall asleep.
And we also wanted to mention engagement and cultivating community. We know that when students are genuinely engaged in learning, they learn better. And we also know that when students are part of a community, they learn better. And by community, I don't just mean the peers beside you. I also mean community with your instructor, with staff at the university, and with other people on campus.
Personal responsibility for learning. And so we're just putting it in here again as a slight reminder that it's up to the student, right, to be successful in their learning processes. But we want to remind them that there are many supports available for them. So if they are struggling in any way, then it's their responsibility to advocate for themselves and to look for those resources that will help support them. Another thing in terms of a mindset that we encourage people to be mindful of is bias. We all have biases, whether it is the type of knowledge that we have and where we are missing knowledge, whether it has to do with what's more familiar, what's more comfortable. There's a wide range of types of biases. And we're coming back to this idea of knowing what you don't know, right? So part of seeing your bias is understanding what it is that you don't know and being open to and willing to fill in some of those gaps.
It's also important that we talk about a fixed versus a growth mindset. A growth mindset is when you say, I can't do this yet. It's when you're aware that everyone has limits to knowledge and limits to skills. And when you find out where that limit is, that's actually a good thing, because then you can work in that area to get better. We are all works in progress, and we have to remember that. The next thing I wanted to highlight was curiosity. We know that if students are genuinely curious about their subject topic, then they're more likely to be engaged in class and that they learn better and have better retention. We also wanted to mention metacognition. This is thinking about thinking and being aware of your learning. It's important to take a metacognitive approach to learning. This means that you're actively aware of what works and what doesn't in terms of your approach to learning. How well do you know a topic? How deep does that knowledge go? So it's important to think about your thinking and learn about your learning. And we really wanted to highlight learning from failure. We all fail. All of your instructors have failed and have learned from those failures. And it's important that we get comfortable with failure so that we can learn from it. If you get a test back, rather than just looking at the grade on the test, make sure you look at the questions you got wrong and think about how can you study differently to help you in the future? How could you correct those answers? Have a dialogue with your instructor. Look at the feedback that's on the test. We need to get comfortable with being wrong. We need to get comfortable with knowing where the limits of our knowledge is so that we can work in that area to gain new knowledge or gain new skills.